morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hi, my name is Ann McNeill, and I am, yes, I am the master wealth builder, helping to build stronger and better lives and businesses. But I am the host today on a very special show, and it is called the Think and Grow Rich Mastermind Live. And today is a masterclass. So, a masterclass means you and I and Dr. Peter James are having a phenomenal conversation about the power of specialized knowledge. And if you've been following us, then you know that the author says that there are two different types of knowledge. Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich, had it right. One type of knowledge is general, the other is specialized. And it does not matter how much general knowledge you have. How do you create and accumulate money from general knowledge? It's tough. You must specialize your knowledge, and I like to call it niche to be rich. Yes, just think about that. Niche to be rich. Now, knowledge is not going to attract money, but if you organize it in an intelligent way and you direct it toward your specialized desire for the achievement of something that's material or monetary, then the chances of you achieving that is going to be very, very, very high. But I could talk all day by myself with all of you about this subject, but I must bring on my co-host today, none other than Dr. Peter James. Good morning. How are
Good,
you?
mo- good
Morning.
morning, good morning, good morning. How are you doing today there, Ann McNeill?
Listen, I'm in the Hamptons today talking to a group of women about the billionaire mindset
Ooh,
as we mastermind. And then to be on this show with you today, it is a great day. It is a great, great, great day.
oh,
And with that thought in mind, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as we get ready to go to our 13 steps?
well, first of all, I would love to have that conversation talking about the billionaire mindset wholeheartedly. But my name is Dr. Peter A. James. So excited to be with you all this morning as we dive on into the specialized knowledge chapter of Napoleon's infamous text, Think and Grow Rich. You know, this specialized knowledge is quite insightful. Ann McNeil's going to talk about some stories today about how specialized knowledge, what it looks like in the real world, to give us all some examples of, how we may be able to impart that for ourselves. But at the same time, my first question, my first ask of you all is this: how are you diving into specialized knowledge? What does that look like in your life? Right? So it's important for us to reflect. And as I tell students, as I tell colleagues, sometimes it's important for us to go broad, but then go narrow. Start broad, but begin to narrow. And I'm also in the process of continuing to narrow down. So this narrowing process is just part of the life's journey, part of your business journey as well. I'm sure if we, as Ann and I have discussions this morning, she can give examples of how she was probably broader, but she's mentioned already niche to be rich. That niching is an example, more examples of narrowing down. Ann McNeill, such a good topic this morning, ready to dive on into this chapter. But you want me to kind of take off with this these
Yes.
13 steps and this
Yes, yes,
this
yes, yes.
commercial
Let's
here?
give everybody the total picture because many of you that's listening in, you may be listening in for the very first time and you're wondering who are these people? What are they talking about? And why is this important to me? Well, again, my name is Ann McNeill and I am the master wealth builder celebrating over 45 years in the construction industry as the first Black female contractor in my state of Florida. And with that thought in mind, I read this book in 1979, 9 p.m., December 31st, and my life has never been the same. But it was the beginning of the specialized knowledge and that information that took me into an entirely different direction in my career. But starting with the desire and then having faith, and then Peter is going to go through the balance of those. We want to give you, like he said, the broad picture of this philosophy. And then we will narrow it down to this particular principle, because every month, starting in January, we start with the first principle and then the second and then the third, and we end the year with the last principle of the book. And then the next year we start all over again. And we've been doing this now probably for almost 20 years. 20 years just between podcasts, Zoom, StreamYard, and the likes, walking through this book every single month, principle by principle. So at this time, Dr. James is going to go ahead and give us the total of the philosophy.
Yeah, such I'm actually looking at this sentence here in the specialized knowledge chapter, even before we go over to the breadth of these 13 principles. Napoleon Hill says on page 75 of the text, this is so important for everybody: knowledge will not attract money or any other kind of success unless it is organized and intelligently directed through practical plans of action to the definite end of accumulating money, right? So this is an example of this chapter, this specialized knowledge chapter, and how we're going to go narrow today. But if I take a step back, and those of you who have never purchased this book, those of you who have never touched the pages of this book, Think and Grow Rich, it is one of the most popular, one of the most definitive self-help books around. And the insight that it provides, even though it was written so long ago, even today resonates. It will just shake everything that you know about what you're doing. And we can dive on into that a little bit later. But without further ado, I think this video does an even better job of giving the overview.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the Mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at just organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
Broad to narrow.
Yes.
That was broad.
Yes. Yes, that was broad. What I'd like to do is make sure that our audience knows that every time we do a master class, that it is just that. It is a class where we're having a conversation with all of you. So what we'd like to have you do, first of all, let's welcome you, Dr. Raquel, Ruben, and so many of you, Doretha. Every single week you're here, Renette Gordon, and welcome back, Johnny Lloyd. We'd like to have you put in the chat any questions you have of us, because today, as a part of our masterclass, we're having a dialogue with you. We're talking about, I like to call it niche to be rich. This entire conversation about specialized knowledge is it's a very special subject for me, because as I began to read it, like I say all the time about the book, and then I began to allow the book to read me as relates to my wisdom, my knowledge, and my understanding of each of these principles and how they tie back together. Because the author tells us that everything starts with a desire. And oftentimes, Peter, we don't realize that the work is not outside of us on other people. It is the inner work we do to understand your desire. So we're going to start with you, Dr. James. What is your desire? And each of you that's listening in, what is your desire? Can you put it in the chat? Let's go deep to niche to be rich, discussing how do you connect your niche to your desire? How do you actually niche to be rich and understand what does that mean? Let me give you an example. When I had the opportunity to answer these questions, Dr. James, where the author says, how much do you want, Ann McNeill, in the first chapter? Then he says, that's money. So if everybody can put the amount of money you want in the chat. Then he began to ask me, what are you going to do in return for this money? I didn't know. Then he asked me about what date do you want the money by? I did not know what date. But then he began to ask me, how are you going to make the money? Doing what by when? Where's your plan of action, Ann McNeill? Now, this is where specialized knowledge comes in, because for the first time in my life, I realized I was, I did like everybody else. You go to school, you get a good education, and you get a good corporate job. Mm-hmm. I did that. But I found myself on that night of December 31st, 1979, so deeply in debt. I'm talking fast because I am so excited to get to the bottom line of this subject. But I realized that my knowledge as an undergraduate degree in accounting and working on getting a master's degree, I did not know how to tie that job into achieving the amount of money I desired. And so what I really want us to begin to do on this Masterclass, Dr. James,
Mm-hmm.
is help our audience along with ourselves take the journey from where you were to where you are to where you're going as relates to your specialized knowledge, and will it really, really, really get you what you desire? What does it look like? How do you get there? So let's get this party, yes, started. So who'd like to go first? Now, is it Johnny Lloyd? Is it Diane King Flowers? Is it Wyman Wimbush? Is it Doretha? Is it Dr. Rubin? This is class. It's called the Master Class. And all of you know we're all students in the class of life. But when it comes to this philosophy, start with your desire. Then we need all of you to think about your specialized knowledge, and will your specialized knowledge help you get your desire? So we'll give you a minute. I'll go first. Is that all right?
That's fine. That's fine. And I will toss this in here, there, I mean, Neil. It's okay if our goal, maybe if our chief aim, has shifted over time. Maybe you started out something, but maybe as you have continued to work, as you've continued to evolve, your focus, your goal, your big goal has shifted. That's okay too. But again, as that goal has shifted, now as Ann McNeill is asking, what are you doing to get there? Where is your specialized knowledge in order to get towards that goal, accomplish that goal? And she's going to give some examples. And Ann, I also want to hear about, you talked about your grandson, even off before we jumped on the show. You talked about how also that you talked about the high school, the program that you were mentioning, and how they're becoming or are gaining more specialized knowledge. Would love to hear some of those stories as we continue to progress.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And so I'm not going to skip, but I want to make sure that our class, our
Mhm.
master class students understand the question. The question Napoleon Hill asked was, how much money do you want? That is the desire question. Now, I know that Dr. Raquel is saying my desire is to inspire, impact, influence, and empower people uh, to be action and to action and to aim higher. Renette Gordon says, I went broad to narrow in my education training. I started. Now, all of that's great, but let me restate the question like this. If you go to chapter 1 in your book, the desire chapter, Napoleon Hill asks, how much money do you want? You see, everything we're saying is what we're going to do.
Mhm.
But the question is, how much money do you want? And then everything you're saying, you're going down to question number 4, and you're going to question number 5. Your specialized knowledge is, I'm going to use Dr. Rubin, for example. Dr. Rubin, in her previous career, could have said, and this is what Dr. James is talking about. She could have said, listen, I want to make $100,000 per month by January 1, 2023. That's the desire question. Now, her specialized knowledge, here we go. Her knowledge could be, I'm a dentist. Her specialized knowledge could be, I specialize in root canals.
Hmm.
So, how many root canals do I need to do in order to make $100,000 a month every month starting in January? This is such a deep, deep, deep subject,
Mhm.
because if we're not clear and have great clarity about how much money you want, that's what the desire question is asking us. It's really not asking us, what am I going to do? Who am I going to impact? That's not the question. The question, Ann McNeill, is how much money do you want? That's what the author asked me on December 31st, 1979. I did not have an answer because nobody ever asked me that before. I was taught and told, go to school, get a good education, get a good corporate job. I did that. Many of us did that. And we did not know that that has nothing to do with how much money I want. This is deep.
Hmm.
This is so deep, I'm still digging in the niches. to be richer. Okay. I just love these master classes, Dr. James.
And I tell you, here's another example of that. So, if I thank you, Johnny Lloyd, for putting in the amount of money. Here's an example. I'm going to be very bold with this too. In my chief aim, I say part of it is I want to be $5 million liquid by 20 by actually, what did I have here? By 2030. So I'm giving myself some time, but think about what liquid means. For those of you who are not familiar, that means if Ann McNeill said, "Hey, can I borrow $10,000?"
$1 million.
If I can borrow a few $1,000s, I'll have it there for her because I'll be liquid. Now I'm going to have a retirement. I'm going to have some other money, but I want to be able to have liquid money in a bank account somewhere. That's my goal. That's part of it. Don't get me wrong. That's not my only one, because I have some other nonprofit goals and real estate goals for sure. But that's just part of it. I'm very specific. Now Ann McNeill is asking, what am I narrowing? What's my niche to get there? And again, if I go into detail, we'll go into maybe a little bit later on, but I'm a little bit broad, but how am I narrowing that focus? What is my specialty, my specialized knowledge that is allowing me to get closer towards that liquid goal?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now we're getting there. Thank you, everybody. Johnny Lloyd, $500,000 by 2025. Dr. Rubin, 4.8 million by 12/31/2022.
Nice.
Renette Gordon, 100,000 solo. Renette Gordon, $100 million. You got to give me an exact date, Renetta Gordon. The book says an exact date. And he also talks about why that is so very important. You want to be specific. Doretha Dennis says $150,000 by December 31st, 2022. Now, she obviously is an A student. Now she wants to tell us how she's going to do it. Doretha, we haven't gotten to that question yet. Take your answer. We are so excited. We'll take your answer. Wimbush, you got to come on, brother, man. He says, one of the most impactful questions you can ask a young person, how much and by when? And we're going to say doing what, but we're going to ask you right now, brother man, how much, by when, doing what? All right. So I'm being bold today because the realization for me is I woke up this morning, which most of us, if you go on social media, your feed, depending upon which platform you're on. If you're on Facebook, it will tell you what you were doing a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago this day. And like everybody else, I did the same thing. And it told me that 10 years ago today, 10 years ago, I was in an airport. I just posted this on my Facebook feed, if any of you are following me, Ann McNeill. And when I looked at it, I was shocked because it told me that 10 years ago to this day, I was in an airport with my grandson, my two daughters, where he had just given his first keynote paid speech at 12 years old. And he was doing a Facebook Live. I was in naturally, I'm standing behind him, talking, and then he panned the airport, and he's riding first class. We were not, and he wanted all of the world to know that he had a first class seat while his family was in coach, right? So, but the irony of that comment is that I'm right now in the Hamptons, and he's right here with me at 22. And so the power of your desire, it does not always have to be about money. But for this question, for this class, it is about money. You see, because back then, I did the homework, I did the work, and I continued to be on the journey. It's not about me. It's about all of us understanding, how do you have an amount of money you desire? And like Dr. James said, what's going to happen over time is that you're going to realize or come to the realization that you may have option one. My degree is in accounting, I had an accounting job. That was not going to get me to the amount of money I desired. So then I started buying real estate, and I realized I was losing more than I was making. That was not going to get me to the desired amount I wanted. And like he said, Dr. James said, when we know how much we want and the desire, then we're able to have an accountability with the mastermind group, whether or not that specialized knowledge is going to get you where you want to be at the period of time you choose to get there. That's what makes it so deep. And then, of course, what certifications must you get? What knowledge must you attain? But let's go back to what the author says about specialized knowledge. He says, you know what? The specialized knowledge does not need to be in the possession of the person. Say it again, Dr. James. My grandma liked to say, Now let's use a couple of examples.
Yeah, I got a couple too.
Okay, you go first.
Okay, so I was telling you even before the show, and I actually got two examples: my daughter and my nephew. So these are both young folks in their 20s, right? And they have given me insights about what's going on in their head. Now, we all have this. All of us have this. We think a certain thing, but unless we are sometimes reading or talking with others who have the specialized knowledge, we are left to our own devices. And sometimes our brains will tell us stuff that may not necessarily be true. Here's my caveat to that. You don't have to believe everything you think. I'll come back to that though. Left to our own devices, we begin to create a narrative. And here is my nephew's narrative. He said to me, wow, Uncle Peter, I didn't realize that electric cars didn't really need gas. Think about that now. Left to your own devices, because all he's ever known is that cars have gas. He's seen that. And yes, he's heard of electric cars, but he still did not connect the dots until he came to the house and saw that, wow, you don't ever have to go to the gas station. That's a small example, but think about it, what it looks like if you don't have other people that you are bouncing ideas off of. Other people who are helping to sharpen you. Other people, as Ann has mentioned, who have specialized knowledge that are helping to breathe into you and you into them. You know, that's just a small example, cataclysmic one, that sometimes on a larger scale, we think we know, we have no idea until we are able to have these types of conversations to go into more depth of this specialized knowledge. That's just a small example there, Ann McNeill.
Well, listen, when you go back to the book, the author gave us two, and I'll even add three. One he gave us that's glaring, and that's Carnegie. When Carnegie said, you know, I don't know anything about the making and marketing of steel. He had no specialized knowledge in that area. But what he did was he surrounded himself with 50 individuals who knew everything about the marketing and the manufacturing of steel. And during an interview, Napoleon Hill asked him, he said, so if you don't know anything about so specialized knowledge now, he said, in another book, which I love, it's called The Wisdom of Andrew Carnegie. You can get it, right? Go in and order that book. It's a phenomenal book. And it is actually the interview between the two men that preceded the writing of the book we're studying. And so Carnegie says to Napoleon Hill, when he says, well, if you don't know anything about the making and marketing of steel, then what do you know then? How do you get to become, the wealthiest man and the da-da-da? He said, listen, my job is to keep my mastermind group on one accord, on the right mind and the right spirit. He said, have you ever tried to get 2 or 3 people? And I'm laughing because for those of us that's either in a mastermind group or we're in a business or even in a family, you all know how hard it is to get a group of people to be in total agreement. And that is where the work is. And for Carnegie, he was expressing to Hill during this interview, listen, all of these guys got specialized knowledge, each in certain things. My specialized knowledge is in making sure that this mastermind group of accountability for all of us is hitting the goal.
Mm.
And so when you think about Ford, we all read the story. Ford was put on trial for being an ignorant man until he proved to the lawyer, he said, listen, why should I fill my mind with insignificant information? I have a push button that anything I need to know by anybody, I just push a button. And when I read that again, just recently in preparation for this podcast, I said, oh my gosh, you know what? That's why the kids don't want to go to school, because they can have a push button on their phones. And now Peter's talking about the conversation we had about my grandson who's here. You know, he was at Morgan State in his second year. He said, I don't want to be here. You know, it's infringing upon my clients. So I'm leaving school and going to build my business. Now, for those of us like Peter's uncle, we were talking about the gas in the car. My grandson was talking about an automated vehicle in his mind in terms of his wisdom and his knowledge and understanding about specializing, niching to be rich in a certain area, and his degree and the school could not give him that. How could I argue with that? We all tried, because you know how we are. We're like Peter's uncle. We want to understand that we don't understand, because all we know is that gas drives cars, and you can't drive a car without gas. And the millennials today, they're saying gas cars. Who wants a gas car? Actually, who wants a car? I can Uber anywhere I want to go. That's specialized knowledge. Somebody came up with the idea, specialized in his knowledge, came up with Uber. Why do you need a car? Just rent a car and a driver. So we can go on and on, but we're going to go back to our classmates here. Dr. James, we're going to go back to our classmates. Okay. Wyman Wimbush says his desire is $1.5 million.
Love it.
And via investment income, speaking and training. Now, I love this. Now, you're going off into the purpose and all of that. All that's great, but I can't get there right now. With the purpose of funding my vision and creating a faith-centric entrepreneurial training. Okay, I can't get there right now, my friend, because so often, and I'll talk about myself, my mom was a holiness minister and my father was a businessman. And I've invested so much of my life in so heavenly minded. I realized that I was no earthly good in terms of making sure that I learned how to take the word of God and become all that he would have me to be in making money so that I could tithe and give more to serve. Exactly what you're saying. So just for this podcast, we're going to focus on what is it that when Wyman gives us three things, he said, via investment income, that's one niche. The second thing he says, speaking, that's another niche. I like to call those income streams, income circles. I coach clients on how to take each one of these and drill down into each one separately, because let's break down his 1.5. He could say, I want $1.5 million, and this is how I'm going to get it. I have three items here. I have investment income, I have speaking, I have training. He could say, look, I want $500,000 in investment income. I want to create $500,000 in income from speaking. And then I want $500,000 from income in training. I want y'all to follow this train of thought, everybody. Hold up now. Those are three different things. And you can specialize in each one of those. Follow me now. We're going deep here, okay? Three different things. So which one is he going to do first? Is he going to focus on niching in the investment income by diversifying his portfolio? Large cap, small cap, mid cap? Is he going to have his money, $500,000, all in, separate sectors? separate industries. This is deep. Because see, we can put these words out here. Now I'm talking about, my friend here. So I can say this because I live this, you live it. But oftentimes we don't stop and take the time to specialize in the knowledge of investing. We're all taught to make the money, but seldom are we taught to make the money make money. So as a member of the National Speakers Association and also Black NSA speakers, which actually is where many of us met. When you talk about a speaker and making money from speaking, how much money are you going to have to invest in yourself and in your speaking business before you ever make a dime? So now speaking, okay, is that keynote? Is that workshops? What subject? What industry? What client? We're talking about niching to be rich here. I just want to make sure we use this masterclass, Dr. James, not to just, put the words out there, but how do we drill these words down? And I really want our audience to dialogue back and forth with us and ask the questions, because when you stop and think about, and I was sharing about the students, and Dr. James, the person I was talking about, her name is Tamara L. Holmes. I'd like for all of you to go to Google and put her name in, Tamara, Tammera L. Holmes, Holmes. And this sister has created a program. Now we're talking about niching to be rich with our children, right? Because so often we stop and we think about, I want my child to do what I did. I want them to do better. Go to school, get a good education, get a good corporate job, and retire on that job. That's what we were all taught if you're over the age of 50, right? Because from slavery, we couldn't do certain things. And then we became, we had the opportunity after 1964 Civil Rights Act to work in the corporate world. And like Dr. James says, we went and we got these degrees because we thought that was it. But then after getting the degrees, we realized it was not. And then we started these businesses only to find, wait, that may not be it either. Because again, we've not specialized or learned the power of specializing our knowledge. Well, I had the benefit and pleasure of being in Chicago this week. And we are starting a National Association of Black Women in Construction chapter there. And I had the benefit of meeting this young lady, Tamara Holmes, who was sharing this program that she has where she takes students through the STEM program. And she has a program that's called From School to Work. And from school to work program, she is taking students. She's taking students and she's taking these students and helping them to become pilots. Her program is called the Aerostar Aviation Institute. Aerostar Aviation Institute, and it is phenomenal. She's literally taking high school students, training them in the aviation. Now, we're niching to be rich now. Niching to be rich. And working with the FAA and working with the federal government. She is starting a school. She's taking it out of the public school system, her own school, only one of two, I think, Black pilot program schools in the United States. All right. And it's called Aerostar Aviation Institute, I believe it to be exact. Phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal. But again, niching to be rich. This is in connection with the FAA, where they're taking students from school, training them. Dr. James, can you imagine getting all of the training all through high school for aviation jobs, skip college?
Wow.
Can you imagine skipping college when all our lives we've been taught that we need to go to school and get all of these degrees? No, how about niching your knowledge and your wisdom and your understanding into an area where there's such a great demand? Because that's the other thing that we have. A lot of us are in jobs that there's no demand. Renette Gordon says, yes, absolutely. We need to know who we serve. What are the pains that we're willing to invest in immediately and what results we can deliver. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for that.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead, Peter, because I
And,
can.
and I'll jump on in really quick. Those of you who are in business, you've heard this before too. Identify your ideal customer, right? We've all heard, if you've been in business any amount of time, you've heard that. Now, when you start business, this is what you tell yourself and you tell others. Everybody's my customer. Everybody's going to love what I have and what I can provide, because you think that everybody's going to want to buy from you. But when you jump in, you realize when you have that everybody mentality, no one's really coming through the door. But per this conversation, even when you're able to niche, and Renette said it well in the chat, identifying who is your ideal customer. I like to call it my avatar, right? That literally down to the individual, what he or she looks like, how old they may be, what are they doing, their demographics a little bit, how much money do they make, what industry are they in, where do they hang out at. I'm getting more and more specific, even for the customer and business. Now I got to ask you, are you specific about your own business, about the direction, what you provide, what you're doing, what you are willing to do, right? And now if I even bring it back to you and your specialty, your specialized knowledge, what is that all about? And have you been able to identify that very specifically? Ann McNeill has spoken about speaking. What type of speaking? What industries do you want to speak to? Is it male or female? Don't say it's everybody. In my entrepreneurship class, they'll tell me, oh yeah, it's people who are 18 to 70. That's everybody. Be more specific, right? But then with you, what is specific about what you provide? So I provide executive and leadership coaching to people who are between 40, my ideal customer is between 40 and 55 years old, who desire to be transformed in their business or their careers, right? I can go deeper. I can even go deeper.
Oh,
Right?
hold 1 second. And I want everybody, I want everybody to think about what he said, because when he went business, career or business,
Right.
I want us to understand there's two different tracks.
There are.
Two different tracks, because what you would do in coaching a career person,
Totally different.
totally different than what you would do to coach an entrepreneur. And I'm telling you, this subject of niching to be rich and your specialized knowledge, I want every single one of you put in the chat, what's your aha moment? We have somebody that just said, someone that just came on, and I hope I pronounce your name or the name of your company properly, like Bancorp or something like that, please.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Bancorp. Yeah. This can be a wake-up call. You know, many people go to prison and they have a wake-up call while in prison. Many people go to the hospital and have a health scare and they have a wake-up call about their health. Many people end up being divorced and they have a wake-up call about their relationship. Sometimes it's a child that may have become wayward and you have a wake-up call about not being home or spending much time with that child, or what you could have, would have, should have done, what you could have, would have, should have done and didn't do. Our desire here with this podcast and this program and this YouTube channel is to get you to have a wake-up call about your life.
Yep.
And your business. We focus on 10 different areas, and I think we're going to go ahead and move over into the annual meeting and the beta test. But let me say this. We focus on 10 different areas of your life on this podcast. As a part of the International Mastermind Association, we have a beta test that we're doing, and it's called the Think and Grow Rich for the International Mastermind Association beta test for masterminders. And we're helping individuals learn how to form and create a mastermind group of accountability using the principles of this book. while we focus on 10 areas of your life, and that includes your spiritual, your family, your financial, your health, your education, your personal development, your business, like he said, or your career, right? The recreational area, the civic, and the creative. We encourage and support you in setting your goals for 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 40 years. And for some of us, we've been doing this now for over 40 years. But when you look back and niching to be rich in your specialized knowledge, like Dr. James said earlier, you can change and shift as you learn more. You will do better, but will you? And are you willing to make that shift? So if you're interested in participating with us as a part of the beta test that we do, you can go to International Masterminders with an S, okay, International Masterminders with an S.com/group mastermind. Okay, you can go to Google, you can go to the wherever you want to go. Join us, sign up to join us. We meet once a month on a Tuesday, and the details are there. But we'd like to have you register. But we're talking about how to hold you accountable in your mastermind group. All right. And if you're in a mastermind group currently, this really is for you. If you're thinking about getting in a mastermind, and talking about your specialized knowledge in particular, because oftentimes, like Dr. James said, we don't know what we don't know. We can't see what we can't see. But when you surround yourself with like-minded and like-spirited individuals who can help you see the blind spots, then that can make all the difference, because sometimes we can be so stuck in our way. I know I was. I thought that by getting that degree, going on and getting a PhD, that was going to be my ticket, only to find out that from listening and researching, talking with other people, they'd done that and it was not. And so I had to back up and find something different. And so I want to just really continue to encourage you. And Dr. James, if you'd like to talk about the annual meeting, because again, we really want to give the audience a place to go to be held accountable. So if you'd like to share, please.
Yeah. Another quick story there, and is my daughter just got out of the military not too long ago. She just spent 6 years in the United States Air Force. Just got out. She lives in New York City now. She's trying to find her way, applying for jobs. So she's just putting her resume and a cover letter online on applications, right? On putting her resume on there, and just waiting. And we know many people who are like that, not even just young people, who just apply online and just wait and see what happens. But that's not enough. There's more that needs to be done. And I told her, just applying, putting your resume, submitting your resume in the cover letter is only a step. I've any job that I have gotten, literally, I've reflected on this and I've told people this before. Any job that I've gotten, I've known somebody who knew somebody who got me in there. It's not always what you know, it's who you know also. It's your network. If you want to go deeper with that network, it's your mastermind. If you want to go deeper with that mastermind, it's accountability. And every year we hold an accountability meeting at the beginning of the year to go a little bit deeper in this entire conversation, to ask ourselves where we've come from, where we are, and where we're going. And then ask to be held accountable to our goals and our plans. We as human beings, we don't like to be held accountable, because we have to, especially as adults, we don't want to have to answer to somebody, right? We don't want somebody to say, hey, where are you with that? And if you haven't accomplished it, what's gotten in the way? And this accountability meeting that is held every January in Boca Raton is just an opportunity for you to go deeper. As you see there on the screen, it will be held January 6th through 7th, 2023. Wow. In Boca Raton. I highly, 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 highly encourage you to sign up sooner rather than later, to commit to yourself to be held accountable beginning today. Listen, and then if I narrow that down a little bit more now, who And where is your mastermind? And how often are you meeting with them? And how are they stretching you to to even niche down in your field, in your area, in order to accomplish those goals, those especially those financial goals that we have identified in this chat. Deep stuff, challenging you all who are watching, if you're not doing this, to ask yourself what's getting in the way. What's preventing you from going deeper in your own? Listen, do you want to accomplish it, or are you just saying that? If this is really a passion, Ann McNeill, what is your will and the desire to accomplish it?
Well, I wish we could play the 13 steps at the very end of this program like we do in the very beginning, because when you think about the conversation we've had today, all of the principles really do apply. All of the principles really do apply, from the desire to the faith, to the auto suggestion. I mean, all the way through specialized knowledge, all of these principles do apply. But when you really stop and think about how are you going to get there? And thank you, Renette. Every leader needs to have leaders.
Yep.
But when you stop and think about how are you going to get there without accountability? And if you have accountability, like Dr. James is saying, are these individuals, first of all, are they like-minded and like-spirited? And if they are they in your niche, in your specialized industry? And I started this conversation off talking about, I said, I go first and talk about myself. As I began this journey for myself and realized that with an undergraduate degree in accounting while working on a master's, I went to a trade school. And Napoleon Hill shares with us, and I really want us to get this when you talk about how do you purchase knowledge? You see, even though I was purchasing the knowledge of getting an advanced degree in finance because I was already on that journey when I picked up this book, but then I began to realize when I did the math that unless I continue to pursue that as a life career, I probably would not make the amount of money that I desired. And then I desired to save $1,000 a year. That was my question number one, was $1,000. Question number two, I was clueless. I didn't know what to do. So I said I'd save the money. Number three was December 31st, 1980. Number four was the fact that I did not have a plan. And if any of you are listening to me and you can relate to this story, it doesn't matter where you are in that journey. You can continue to shift to reassess. And so for me, in about 5 years of being in, I realized, wait, this degree and this area, I don't want to continue working the corporate world, because I was climbing that ladder in corporate only to find it was leaning against the wrong wall for me. And I had to come back down off that wall. And I realized I did not have the self-confidence and the self-image to really do that work in corporate. But what I realized also is that the money for me was in something that I knew nothing about, which was construction. Just from buying and renovating homes and then, renting them out. And like my husband showed me, listen, it's more money than you make. These guys in construction that didn't even finish high school, went to a trade school. He calls me babe. He said, babe, I did the math, and if we did the repairs ourselves, the money is more money than you make. They make more in an hour than you make a day. I want all of you to sit on that for a moment. These guys were making more money without finishing high school because they went to a trade school. They were making more money per hour in the early 80s than I was making a day, working all day long with a lot of debt, including, college debt, that I was making a day. Now, I didn't need to be brilliant to know that plan was broken. And it broke me to realize I needed to do something different. So Napoleon Hill talks about in the book, and I'd like for all of you to go there and check it out, reread it. He says, listen, you can pay to purchase knowledge, and he gives you some choices. And when I read it over and over and over again back then, I said, your experience and education, but you can get a mastermind group of accountability from others. You can get knowledge from that too. If you choose the best and highest minds that you can find, you'd be surprised if you just ask them to
Mhm.
either be in a mastermind group. Dr. James, you're about to laugh. A lot of times we would be surprised. Just ask. The worst they could say is no, but also you can come on these podcasts all over YouTube and create a mastermind group of accountability.
Yeah.
You can go to college and universities, but you can also go to the public libraries. But then lastly, he says, get specialized training, go to these trade schools, study schools at night. And that's what I did. And so now let me fast forward this story 30 years later, 40 years later, as we wrap this podcast up. I now am the first Black female contractor in my state operating at the level that I do, focusing on billion-dollar programs 5 businesses later, all because of this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding about specializing knowledge and niching to be richer. So I just take this, Dr. James, I take it so seriously, even with my children and my grandchildren and anybody that's around me long enough to listen. Because again, the wake up call, oftentimes we don't stop and wake up. We just desire to continue to sleep. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Let me, as we wrap up, let me read a couple of things I put in the chat earlier. Any person is educated who knows where to get the knowledge when it is needed.
Yes.
Right. Love that. But let me also throw this at you, and then I'm going to read something else. I love that conversation that Ann McNeill had mentioned about the high schoolers and the aviation, and even your grandson dropping out. Love that of college. In my mastermind circles that I've been a part of or am a part of, I'm always the most educated person. Actually, I'm usually the only one with a doctorate. It's usually people who barely have a college degree, and they're all making more money than me.
Yes. Hold up. Can you say that again?
Yeah. Yeah. And I come from the more get your education and get a great job and it'll use true success. The mastermind circles that I'm a part of, I'm always the only one with a doctorate, and everyone who barely has college or just has just a bachelor's, they're all making more money than me. What's wrong with that picture? Here's why it is. Doretha had put this in the chat. I'm going to read this really quickly. It's on page 86 of Think and Grow Rich. The idea of starting at the bottom, which most of us thought that's what we had to do, and working one's way up may appear to be sound. But the major objection to it is this: too many of those who begin at the bottom never manage to lift their heads up high enough to be seen by opportunity, so they remain at the bottom. Right? It should be remembered also that the outlook from the bottom is not so very bright or encouraging. It has a tendency to kill off the ambition. This is what he says. And this is another reason why it pays to start 1 or 2 steps above the bottom. Who are you surrounding yourself with that's going to help you go up more of the rungs of the ladder as opposed to just working your way up? What resources, what knowledge, what specialized knowledge are you reaching for? That's what this is about.
Wow.
You don't have to just start it from the bottom and now you're here. You got people around you. You got information more than ever around you to be able to utilize to your advantage, Ann McNeill.
Wow. Dr. Rubin said something a second ago. She said, very important that people who support and challenge you, they aim higher. And then she wrapped it up and said, let that sink in. We could go on, and we we really enjoy doing wisdom. Knowledge is powerful and priceless. Thank you, Johnny Lloyd. Thank you so much. We could go on, and I know we love having our masterclass. And I really Dr. James, I want this to sink in for all who are listening, to have a aha moment,
Mm-hmm.
to have that changed mind, and that draw that line in the sand that this day, and today is the 30th of April. This day, the 30th of April, 2022, may be your day that turns your life around, where we may have said something or somebody in the chat may have said something that really makes you think and grow richer. Again, as we wrap up, my name is Ann McNeill, the Master Wealth Builder, helping you to build stronger, better lives. And I'm going to ask Dr. James to tell you a little bit about who he is and how you can connect with him. And then we're going to bid all of you a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day. We're going to remind you to please join us every single Saturday as we continue to come on and share with you the phenomenal information from this book. So, Dr. James, if you can
Yeah.
just share, yes.
Yeah, good stuff. Dr. Peter A. James, you can find me at shiftyourmindset.com. Best way to connect with me probably is LinkedIn, which I spend most of my time on. That's where my target audience hangs out a little bit. I encourage you all to connect with me. Let me know if you want to have a chat as well. Would love to dive deeper, especially around this conversation, because it's an eye opener for some of us who have just been listening to the traditional way to achieve success, a traditional way to think and grow rich. Maybe it's time for us to find the non-traditional way.
Oh, I
Ooh,
love it. Ooh.
yeah. So hopefully this conversation today has sparked has provided a spark to you. So I know it did for me. I really know it did for me. Yeah.
Same for me. Same for me. It's never too late to think and grow richer. You can connect with me by going to annmcneil.com/coaching. If you are interested in getting greater clarity in your highest income producing areas of your business and your life, we can help you with that. If you're not, then we can't help you. You must have a desire, and you also must have a dream in order for that dream to come true. My desire for all of you is, again, to think and grow richer. I would like to invite all of you also to join us next week. We have a very special guest, and many of you know her. You hear her every week. Now it's an opportunity to hear from her, and that's going to be Dr. Carla. And so, our special guest next week, please join us to listen and participate in the podcast as we continue the conversation, as we continue to think and grow richer. But until then, peace.